Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our panel discussion titled Securing the Spotlight Cybersecurity Roadmap for Mega Events. Our moderator is Laura Buckwell, International Moderator. Our panelists are Dr. Hazim Al-Mohamedi, Risk and Compliance Deputy Governor, National Cybersecurity Authority, NCA, Saudi Arabia; Joao Marcelo Marcus Mello da Silva, Advisor, National Telecommunications Agency, Anatel, Brazil; Ahmed Mohammed Al Hammadi, Director, National Cyber Fusion Affairs, Qatar. Laura, over to you.
Please do take a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have saved one of the best discussions to last, and we now turn our attention to mega events, from international sporting events to large-scale gatherings, which of course present hugely unique cybersecurity challenges. So how exactly is cybersecurity managed in these high-stakes, complex environments, from risk assessment and threat detection to incidents response? And what are the unique challenges? Well, what an incredible panel lineup we have for you today, and I can think of no better panel to tackle this very subject. So thank you so much once again for being with us here today and taking time out of your very busy agendas, I'm sure. Dr. Hazim, I think I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. Now, events here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are really growing at a phenomenal pace right now. Now, you've pitched for the FIFA World Cup for 2034. That's going to be very exciting if you get that. Indeed. You've got Expo 2030, which is coming up. You've also got the Asian Cup as well. However, nothing compares, though, to that of Hajj, drawing in millions and millions and millions of people every single year. So how do you manage that? How does the National Cybersecurity Authority evaluate and prioritize different types of cybersecurity risks?
Sure. Thank you, Laura, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to share this stage with esteemed panelists. And back to your question, each mega event has its own characteristics, setting, and context, as well as challenges. But they all share some similarities when it comes to identifying and treating cybersecurity risks. But let's take the Hajj as an example. The Hajj relies on critical infrastructure that is massive and diverse. This includes water, electricity, telecommunication, transportation, and etc., other critical national infrastructure. This infrastructure is mostly powered by technology, and the Hajj surfaces are increasingly digitized and therefore are subject to different types of cybersecurity risks. To identify cybersecurity risks, we first need to define the scope as precisely as possible. This includes identifying all stakeholders. Typically, we have 30 to 50 stakeholders. However, most entities rely on third parties and outsourcing to fulfill their mandates and operate and deliver their services. And therefore, identifying all stakeholders gets very complicated very quickly. Defining the scope also includes identifying all systems that power that infrastructure. And if you are lucky enough and have the luxury of time, you will assign importance to these systems that will come in handy later on when you prioritize the risk. Once the scope is defined and the list of systems are identified, we evaluate these systems with about 300 to 500 cybersecurity assessments, different types of cybersecurity assessments, technical, compliance, GRC, and others, to identify potential weaknesses in these infrastructure and in these systems. We prioritize, and then we also increase our cybersecurity situational awareness and monitoring and response activities around these identified assets and systems. We typically monitor and analyze hundreds of thousands of cybersecurity events. But the last step, and it is the most important step, is to follow up with these entities and ensure that they address and mitigate all the cybersecurity risks and observations that were identified in the cybersecurity assessments, as well as the monitoring. We prioritize the treatment based on the criticality of the observations and cybersecurity risks, as well as the importance of the system. For example, we tend to focus on critical observations than other ones. And similarly, we focus on internet-facing systems than internal ones because of the type and potential threats that these systems might be subject to. So this is, in summary, the steps that we take at NCA to deal with mega events.
A brilliant overview there, and I cannot imagine the complexity of those coordination efforts, my goodness. So yeah, thank you very much for that brilliant update. Joao, over to you. Now, Brazil has hosted numerous mega events, including the Olympics, as well as the FIFA World Cup, of course, as well. And you've got COP30 coming up as well, so that's going to be very exciting indeed. What has been the most important best practices for ensuring telecommunications security then during these mega events? And can you maybe tell us a little bit more about the most common types of threats that you come across within the events that you've organized in Brazil?
Laura, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and to explain just a little bit of what they did in the big events that we host in the last 10 years. First was the World Cup in 2014. That take place in 14 cities all across the country. We are a big country. And after that, we had in Rio all the many different venues for it was for the Olympic Games. So first of all, we had to place a physical team, a team of our of our staff to be in all of these places, during all of the matches, during all of the events, because if something happened, they could act in the place, they could act in action. So we could act in case of any interference, in case of the use of many equipment that causes interference. So it was a big logistic, to plan everything, to put all the people in those places. We had to train them, and also we had to share all the information with all of the other stakeholders, like the energy sector, like the gas and oil sector, with anybody, because for a big event for that to take place, it's really hard. So, but it was until 2016, and in these 8 years, it changes a lot. First of all, we were much more concentrated in the physical layer, so in the interference, to see if all the systems were, if they were how can I say, properly working. But now, we are much more concentrated in the system, in the upper layer, systems for them, because they have to work. So we are having now the G20 events that are taking places in many cities, and we're sending teams 2 months prior to each event to check how are the security of the companies in these events, to check how are all the infrastructure in this event. We are sending many vulnerability tests for the companies that are acting in this event also, so that they can be prepared for take action during these big events. And we are going to have a summit that's going to be next month in Rio, and next year there is going to be COP 30 There's a bigger event that is going to take place in the north of the country, in the middle of the forest. So it's going to be a huge challenge, and I think that we are improving. First, it was with the Cup, then with Rio, now with the G20, and next year is going to be with the COP30. So it's a huge challenge, but I think that we are doing right.
Very exciting time ahead, though. And I suppose it's taking all that experience from each event and taking it to the next, isn't it? And as we were mentioning backstage, you know, you can't just redo these events. It has to be absolute perfection each time. It can't just be like, oh, let's just, you know, stop and start again. So everything has to be absolute perfection, as we mentioned. Ahmed, great to have you here. Thank you so much. Now, Qatar, of course, has hosted many high-profile events, most recently the FIFA World Cup as well, and you have the Arab Cup coming up next as well. Congratulations on the FIFA World Cup, by the way. Excellent, excellent event. So during these types of large-scale events, how does the National Cybersecurity Agency integrate national cybersecurity strategies for prevention?
So, first of all, I'm glad to be here and as well to share this stage with our distinguished panelists. So, when we are speaking about the integrated cybersecurity strategies, I would like to speak more about the preparation journey that the state of Qatar have established period to host the World Cup. So the state of Qatar, when the bid or the bid have been awarded to the state of Qatar in 2010, and based on that, the state of Qatar have established a body called Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy, and this body was responsible to drive a lot of initiatives before the World Cup in order to assure the development journey, and it was in different domains, such as building a stadium, transportation, infrastructure. And one of these domains was cybersecurity. So we had a very comprehensive engagement between the National Cybersecurity Agency and the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. And why I have mentioned this, because here I'm speaking from a governance perspective. So one of these initiatives that in 2018 we have developed a framework was focused to the World Cup. It's called Qatar 2022 Cybersecurity Framework. And the unique thing about this framework that the development journey of this framework was a contribution between more than 100 representatives from the public and private sectors, as well as subject matter experts, and as well the international community. The good thing about this framework is to give us a visibility for the cybersecurity posture of the country, and as well it will go to the sectorial to reach to the entity or institution level. So why we are developing such a framework, it's in order to be organized and as well to understand the maturity level of this organization before hosting the World Cup. And why is that? Because it will help us to identify the threat landscape and to develop our risk register based on that. Risk register is always important and play a vital role, because if I understand my risk, I will set my plan to mitigate them. And when I'm saying risk, it will always supporting us to develop playbooks and to create too many scenarios proactively, and to set our plans basically. One of the methodologies that we have adapted, and why we have adapted that, because when it comes to any kind of mega event, and I will call it period of special interest. Why it's period of special interest? Because the threat landscape during this period will be completely different, because it will attract visitors, but as well at the same time it will attract a lot of adversaries, you know, because they are seeing a lot of potential and opportunity during hosting this kind of event. And I will always say that during hosting any kind of mega events, is like our strongest enemy will be time. So the time is our strongest enemy. So in order to work in a very proactive or fast manner, we have divided the cybersecurity effort to two dimensions. The first dimension was competition areas, and the second dimension was non-competition areas. And if I will explain that in depth, the competition areas, it will always include, for example, that the venue, it's tied to the tournament itself. So stadium securities, I would say fan zones, ticketing system. So this is gonna fit under the competition areas. Non-competition areas will be like transportation, hotels, public Wi-Fi, other infrastructure. And why we have adapted this kind of mechanism or methodologies is because we want to assure that we have a fast readiness level of response in terms if it's from a preventive measures or detection measures, or as well set our plans for our responsive measures. We have set our plans to do a lot of responsive measures, but as well, when we are speaking about incident response plan, there is a lot of standards such as a NIST. But as well, what we are focusing during this kind of special events is how we contain, eradicate, and recover. Business continuity is the main purpose, and it is our main focus to avoid any kind of interruption during this kind of event. So this is a very high overview how we have worked and prepared ourselves before hosting the World Cup.
And it's being preventative rather than reactive.
Right.
Very, very quickly, how many cyber threats were detected at the FIFA World Cup?
So it's like we need to understand that during any kind of events, so there is a diversity when it comes to number of threats. But what we have faced in Qatar, we have detected more than 80 million threats during the World Cup. More precisely, I believe in 28 days. And actually, it have been dealt with. And we need to differentiate between threats and attacks, because there is a completely different definition for both of them.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah.
Dr. Hazim, back to you. Now, mega events, of course, need, as we mentioned, a lot of coordination between a lot of different sectors. We've got government, we've got the private sector, and we've also got law enforcement as well. So how does the NCA facilitate this type of coordination here in Saudi Arabia to make sure there's an integrated, across-the-board strategy?
Definitely. I would say cybersecurity coordination is actually vital in mega events for its protection as well as its success. However, it is a very challenging task for a couple of reasons. One, you need to coordinate with a lot of stakeholders and entities. And another reason is that you need to do a lot of work given the massive infrastructure that we need to protect. And then finally, you only have limited time to go and do all these activities and cover all that potential risks. So I think it is very important to perform all cybersecurity activities in mega events and organize them under a dedicated program that is governed well and monitored closely. Typically, the program will have two main streams. The first one is external stream, where NCA works with all external stakeholders. And the other stream is internal one, and it is for internal teams within NCA. The goal of the external stream is to ensure that stakeholders and entities participate in all relevant cybersecurity activities effectively and in a timely manner. Whereas for the internal stream, it is within NCA for its internal teams, along with our operational arm, the Saudi Information Technology Company side. So we assemble the teams to perform and execute different cybersecurity activities, including assessments, monitoring and situational awareness, incident response, cybersecurity drills, in addition to cybersecurity awareness campaigns. Typically, the program runs for about 8 months, 30 days for planning, and about 6 months for preparation, execution, and treatment, and then 30 days for monitoring and response as we finally approach the mega event.
Very thorough, collaborative approach there that, yeah, of course, precision is key and time is key, as you mentioned as well. Joao, there is an increasing reliance on 5G and IoT technologies today. So going forward, how does telecommunications play a key role when it comes to cybersecurity on the one hand, but also presenting new challenges on the other?
Yes, the use of 5G is something that all over the world we are using now, because they bring some new features that all of the technologies, all of the prior technologies didn't have. We can put many different and a big number of various devices to collect many informations. You can treat information in a faster way with with big band also. But when you have something like this, you are more dependent on this technology. So what we need to do is we have to improve our how can I say, treatment in order for the technology to work. So if by one side it is really good because you have some new functionality, something new things to work, and the other side we have to deal with the risks. So that's why the standardization process is really important to improve the security of all of the systems. So we have to start from the development of a new software, of a new system, until the end. We have to be all the time concerned about the security of it. And when we have events, big events like this, they are a big target. So we have always to improve the security, and the 5G technology is able to do that also.
Ahmed, is collaboration high up on the agenda for you, especially when it comes to regional and international players? And what have you done in that sense?
So when it comes to collaboration, either if it was locally between the organization or as well regionally or internationally, I believe maybe most of the expertise in the field of cybersecurity, they will agree with me, and we are always emphasizing on collaboration. And why is that? Because we are always adapting the idea that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. And as well, we understand that there is no borders and boundaries between countries when it comes to attacks or cyber threat. So yes, we are always emphasizing on international cooperation, and there is a lot of aspects under international cooperation. So you can drive a lot of partnership with international corporations, agencies around the world. You can engage with a global technology provider and engaging in cybersecurity firms. Engaging on arranging exercises and simulation between the workforce to transfer knowledge, and most importantly, I would say information sharing. And why I'm always emphasizing on information sharing, because it will always support different countries to face certain kind of attack or emerging threats. And when I'm saying information sharing, it will always be related to emerging threats, certain APTs, and identifying the techniques and mechanism and the lateral movement of these kind of groups or hacktivists. And it will really support the analyst to perform in a fast manner in order to identify all these kind of aspects, which is related. It can be either indicator of compromise or any other information. So we are always emphasizing on international cooperation because I believe it will always put us ahead of the attacker.
And at the end of the day, it's making everyone stronger together. So, of course, you need to collaborate. I'm very conscious of the time. These sessions go so quickly. So I've got a final question for each of you. Dr. Hazim, given the complexity of managing both legacy systems and cutting-edge technologies such as 5G at these types of mega events, how does Saudi Arabia manage and balance these types of technologies in order to secure operations and also to prevent vulnerabilities?
Sure. So I think dealing with different types of technologies, including emerging technologies, but also even traditional IT systems, as well as operational technologies we see in the industrial world, certainly complex to manage, especially in the context of mega events. But one approach to deal with these challenges is to use risk-based approach by trying to identify the risk, assess the risk, and then treating the identified risks, and then continuously monitoring the risk. And each type of technology has its own risk. For example, if we are talking about emerging technologies, it is challenging to identify the risk associated with it because the technology is fairly new and because the risk landscape has not yet been fully understood. Also, to deal with these challenges when it comes to different types of technologies, we rely on our partners, especially in the private sectors, and in particular in areas that they are expert in. So, for example, telecommunication providers demonstrate expertise in dealing with risks of telecommunication services such as 5G technologies. Similarly, partners in the industrial world, like providers in the oil and gas sector as well as electricity sector, show great competency in dealing with operational technology risks. And finally, NCA issued technology independent as well as technology specific controls and guidelines. And through national compliance programs, we ensure that entities at least implemented the minimum number of controls that would mitigate the risks, regardless of the type of the technology that they are utilizing.
Thanks so much. We've only got a couple of minutes left. So Joao, very quickly back over to you. Looking ahead, what sort of steps has Brazil integrated into its national cybersecurity strategy to, its broader telecommunications infrastructure, especially in preparation for these big international events such as COP30 coming up?
Yes, in the last 5 years, in the last 4 years, we have a new regulation of cybersecurity to the sector, up to the telecommunications sector, that all of the companies in the country must fulfill some guidelines, some principles. They must have a cybersecurity policy. They must make cycle of vulnerability access. So they must make some things in order for their service to be much more secure than they are now. So, and we also created a group that is called GT Cyber, which is a group that we can dialogue with all of the actors, because this thing is very how can I say, dynamic. So you have all of the time speak with all of the shareholders to see what are the new vulnerabilities, what are the new threats. So I think that with this we are much more capable of dealing with the cybersecurity issues now.
There's vital communication efforts there once again. Ahmed, final comment. In what ways do you leverage cyber threat intelligence and real-time data analytics as well to anticipate and neutralize potential threats during these different types of international events?
Sure. So based on the time left, so I will try to be very focused and precise in that. So when we come, or how we have leveraged the threat intelligence. So I'll be very straightforward. So creating security operations center and data, and this will always supporting us to deploy a threat intelligence platform in order to collect, analyze, and correlate data from different sources to support us with the preventive and as well detective measure. Set responsible incident response plan associated with the cybersecurity centers, and as well create a lot of awareness campaign, because we are not only thinking about the infrastructure, but as well we are thinking about the community and as well the human being. And we understand with a mega event there is a lot of associated risk, try to target this kind of individuals for fraud purposes. And I can give an example about this. So during the World Cup, we have created around 4 security operations centers. Each security operations center have a different purpose and a different goal. Especially that in our stadium, it was a bit unique because it was a mixture from IT and OT technology, and we need to consider this based on the risk. And all these kind of security operations centers were all linked to a centralized command center to manage the entire communication. One of the unique things that we have done, that we have created a small operation room in each stadium in order to avoid any kind of logistical obstacles, and as well to create a cooperation and a relationship between the incident responder within the stadium with the infrastructure team that's managing the current infrastructure within the stadium. So this is in a very high-level perspective.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Sadly, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for such a brilliant dialogue about managing cyber threats across mega events across the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Qatar. Look, we've got a full house here, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last session of the day, an incredible event over the last 2 days as well. So thank you so much for your input. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel. Thank you.